All right, we've got Jack Rhysider with us here tonight. He's the host of the Darknet Diaries, which is a podcast covering true stories from the dark side of the internet. It's a crazy podcast. Stories about hackers, defenders, threats, malware, botnets, breaches, and privacy. He's from a security background, working in an operations center, and it's a fascinating podcast, and it's good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, it's a great show and well produced, and man, there is some interesting stories in there. We should probably dig into a few of them for sure. Like super fascinating. I mean, we both love the research and how deep you get with some of these stories. So, Darren, I don't know where you want to start.
You put in way more work than we do, for sure. I commend you for that. I was actually, the first episode I listened to, was the Apple Podcast one. And I just couldn't believe how it started getting deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And then you're calling up people in fucking Bangladesh. And it just, how did that all, like, was that your plan from the get-go? How did that sort of model come together?
Yeah, so in that episode, I was finding out some people were gaming the charts on Apple Podcasts, and I wanted to get to the bottom of it. Who's gaming it? How are they gaming it? What's the story behind there? Somebody's hacking something here, and I just wanted to figure it out. So I ended up, finding some of these people who were doing it and calling them on the phone and kind of interviewing them for the show. It didn't start out with that. It just kind of started out with understanding the tactic so that I could know, as a podcaster myself, what it takes to climb the charts, just so I know, what to aim for. And then as I just started learning more, I just thought, you know what, nobody's covering this. Why don't I turn this into a show and cover it? And sure enough, I just kept going deeper and deeper. And it's one of those things where I thought people were messing with me at some point just because of what I was looking for, I was actually finding. And like, that's just the things that I came across was insane.
Yeah, that's because it's such an ambiguous thing. Nobody seems to know how the iTunes algorithms work and how people get up there, and you just dug right into it and you got to the bottom of it, and you learned a lot about other stuff along the way. You talked about the New York Times bestseller stuff, and yeah, that was a really good episode. I mean, do you always you've been deep on a lot of them, and so did you plan on doing that, like when you started the Darknet Diaries, like being able to dig so deep into a lot of these things?
So that was the first time I ever did any investigative journalism stuff, like trying to uncover news that nobody's uncovered before.
Right.
All the other episodes have just really been covering something that's been well documented in the news or somebody's personal story, and they're telling me that. So this was new to me, but when I listen to podcasts myself, I think investigative journalism ones are like some of my favorites.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you're along on the ride with the person who's doing the show. So I've always wanted to do that. I just didn't think I'd ever actually get into it because at the same time, I'm kind of ruffling some feathers too. I'm bringing to light stuff that people don't want to be brought to light and stuff. So this to me was kind of an easy way to try that, to see if I could uncover this without like really causing any people a lot of stress, because it turned out to be a bunch of people in Bangladesh who were doing this, and it just seems like they're just doing it for a quick buck. I don't think there's like a big mastermind operative behind the whole thing anymore. I just think it's just kind of going on there. So
yeah, it was kind of like, it seemed like somebody smartly figured out by playing around with it, like how to maximize the response to the algorithm, in a daily or a weekly kind of thing, and you found. So it just seemed like he spread it to other people. Kind of, some people started working on it and charging for it on Fiverr. Like, it didn't seem like it was too big of a conspiracy, but it got, a lot of people started using it.
Yeah, they sure did. And so I think to break it down, what I learned was it just takes number of new subscribers a day to climb the ranks in Apple Podcasts, iTunes.
Yeah.
And after publishing this, I had a bunch of other people tell me how they either a bunch of people telling me they actually work on gaming other charts. So people have been paid to game the Amazon charts for best-selling items or the Steam charts for best-selling games. And, the other Android apps charts, Libsyn? travel sites, you know, for
like
ranking up on,
Travelocity or something.
yeah, those kind of things. Yelp, it's all gameable. And so this is kind of what I tried to do, is put this, you know, bug in some people's ears, like, hey, stop trusting all these charts that we kind of rely on to make our purchases. A lot of them are hackable.
It's
And that's sort of the premise of the podcast is hacking, I suppose, right? If you had to pick sort of your central premise, it's sort of hacking different sort of systems, whether they be the iTunes store or the IRS or the gaming network or PBX or.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's my background. I was a security engineer trying to keep my clients safe from hackers, basically, for 10 years. And some of the times in those situations was just such high drama, where I was like, holy cow, like the president is going to address this on tonight's news, like that kind of level of high drama. So I'm like, this is so intense. And all these years I've just been like, I can't believe I work in this kind of thing, where it's become so political, and it becomes like a weapon of cyber weapons and all these things. So I just think it's perfect for great storytelling on a radio show. And yeah, each one of them is some sort of, either I interview the hacker or the person who's been hacked, or I cover some high level hack that's been in the news.
Which is your favorite so far?
Well, before we get into that, I want to get into a little bit more about, before we get into each episode, or not each one, but a couple of my favorites. What is your feeling? Because listening to this and realizing how gameable a lot of this stuff is, especially charts and stuff that people follow, it's in a way it's enlightening, but in a way it's kind of disappointing too. It's like we're living in this world where there's so much on the computer and there's so much that we see, and so much of the information is manipulated. Like, do you ever get a sense of not dread or doom, but do you know what I mean? Like, how does when you're investigating this and you're coming up with all this, how does it make you feel?
Yeah, I think for my sake, I can protect myself for what I need. I think there's some things I have no control over, like when we had the Equifax breach. Like, well, I didn't really give you guys my information, and here you go, you lost it on me. I don't even know what to do about this. Like, so there's some stuff you just can't even avoid, even if you take all the precautions.
Yeah.
But a lot of my listeners do hit this level of dread and fear, and just like they shut off their cameras on their their laptops and kind of go in that corner of the room where it has no Wi-Fi, and just kind of decompress there for a while, because it is scary to see how vulnerable we are on these systems. And I think I'm hearing a lot of people like really getting concerned about this. So I'm thinking about kind of helping out in that way, and making some sort of, like, I don't know, cheat sheet or something on how to protect yourself. Because I think what you should do is not really worry about being faster than the bear, but being faster than your friend who's also running from the bear. These hackers will take the easy targets, and if you're a little bit harder to get into than the neighbor, then they're going to skip you and go to the neighbor. A lot of times it's low quality hackers just trying to do as big of a hack they can, and not really focusing on you particularly. But
yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. For me, it was more about, like, if somebody, like a higher level hacker, wants to get you, they can just get you. Like, there's no fucking protection. Like, that's what makes me feel like. Like, it's not about getting gamed by a low level, like, hack job. It's like, if somebody wants to do something to you, they
Is most low level hacking like bots and shit these days? Is it like algorithmic, or how does like that work?
Yeah, there's places you might go. Just off the top of my head, like an app you might download in the the phone's app store, or a website you might visit frequently might get infected with something. And now, you've got 100,000 people who went there or downloaded that thing. And now you've possibly infected that many people. So that's kind of like a watering hole attack. Things you go to, things you need, things you want to access get infected, and then you can get infected. I think the two big just safety precautions there is to never reuse passwords. Use a different password on every website you go to and everything you use. And always keep your software up to date, because I think the latest stuff is going to cover the latest patches, and
wow,
you're going to want to use high technology, high tech stuff to hack you if you don't really You're not like head of state or somebody important to hack into. They'll just go on to the next person.
So don't leave.
Well, I'm glad
don't
I
leave all
finally
your
just changed the passwords.
Don't leave all your passwords in a Word document named passwords, like the principal in one of your stories.
Yeah, that did happen, and that was definitely a lesson learned for the principal on that one.
I had a couple people bitch at me for having all the same passwords, like, so now they're all different. Especially like across all the Grimerica like infrastructure, they were all just the same one. Just like, oh my god, you idiot!
You didn't tell me any of these new ones.
You don't need to know them.
Oh my god!
Well, I don't know. I can't just tell you them. It's so it's going to be like we're going to get a letter in the mail that has the encryption key, and that's when we'll get the final passwords.
I like it.
See, Jack likes it.
The harder, the better.
Yeah, again, I hadn't even thought about stuff like that, but it seems to make more and more sense as they've tricked us into carrying these surveillance fucking devices around all over the place. Do you carry a smartphone and stuff like that, or do you like?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Are you like, because I could go either way. Are you like all in on the tech, like, or as a security engineer, I could see how it could go either way, right? You might be scared of everything and off the grid like Adam Curry does it with a flip phone, or you could just be like all in tech guy, whatever comes out, let's check it out.
Yeah, I mean, I try to I try to not download stuff I don't know or recognize, so I'll keep it to a minimum level of apps and use 2-factor authentication wherever I can. Yeah, I've got all that.
Interesting. Do you think so here's one I get all the time is what do you think is more secure, Apple or Android?
For the phones?
Yeah.
I think the phones that are made by the so Apple makes the iPhone and Google makes the Android, right? So if you can buy phones made by these guys, I think you're probably safer than say a Samsung, which is not making Android. They have to license Android, and so now they have to rely on Google to give them an update, and then they can push it down to you. So updates to like a Samsung phone are going to be much slower than updates to a Pixel, a Google Pixel. So getting it directly from the vendor, I think, is going to be the top choice. But historically, the iPhone has been a little bit more secure.
Yeah.
And there you have it. So, okay, let's get into it now. What's obviously you're a huge fan of hacking the shows. We've already had a couple people say in the chat because I mentioned a couple weeks ago or a week ago in our little chat room, our perpetual Discord chat, that we were going to have you on, and I've had 3 or 4 people tell me already that they've gone to check out the show and just immediately hooked. So it's it's obviously it's not just Graham and I that are into that storytelling style. So we're just what's your favorite episode? Like the first one was the PDX or whatever one. Is that sort of what got you started, or did you have the idea for the podcast ahead of time?
I've been going to these conferences and I hear people share these kind of stories at the bar, at the hacker conferences. And I'm like, how come nobody's like sharing these publicly? Why do I have to be drunk at a bar to hear this? It's so amazing. And so I thought, let's see if I can tap on enough shoulders and get someone to start talking. And it took a while before people did start talking. But I think my favorite one was one where I interviewed a nation state actor. And I believe, I didn't get explicit, but I believe he's from the NSA. And he didn't want me to use his real name or voice or anything, so I had to use a voice actor on that one. But when I was talking to them, oh my gosh, like the excitement of making a show where I'm hearing like a screwed up incident that the NSA did on a hack that they were doing one day. Like I just got so excited, like off the wall, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this person's sharing this with me. Even though I can't use her name and everything, it's just such a juicy, great story. And I loved it. And that feeling of just having someone open up to you and tell you something so personal, I don't know if I'll ever be able to outdo that, because that was just unbelievable.
Can you give us sort of a rundown of the?
Yeah, so that was episode 10, and basically the NSA was trying to get some information out of a foreign government agency. I think it was like I don't know, a ministry of something in another government, and the they got in, they scouted out the whole thing, they figured out what attack they were going to plan, and then they put together a virus to get in there, and they put the virus on it, but the machine got updated, and so the virus shouldn't have worked, but it still got installed, and it caused the machine to crash a lot. And this person, they were able to watch it because they were in that machine in this foreign embassy, right? So they're able to watch this person's machine like as if they're on it. And this person was just troubleshooting and Googling all the, the problems and trying to figure out what's wrong with their machine. Why does it keep crashing and all this stuff? And they brought it to like help desk and tech support. And they're watching like every email, and they're watching what tech support's doing. And they're just like, I hope they don't discover this undiscovered virus, because if they find out that we have hacked their system, this is a real big problem. Like, this is going to go right up to the president. Like, we're going to have a situation rooms, thing on our hands. And so they eventually, the embassy just reinstalled the whole operating system, which will, save the day, I suppose. But there was one of those really intense situations for like a week where they were just like, what is going to happen here? We just watch and pray, because you don't want to mess up anything more at this point. You don't want to try to undo it because you might crash it more and all these things. So it was just really crazy. And that story just blew my mind. Like, you get off the phone call with them and you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just got this story. And it's like my first big scoop kind of thing.
Nice. That's awesome. One of my favorites was the bayonet.
It would be one of your favorites.
And Silk Road, the guy in the Silk Road in the new one, Alpha, what was it called again?
Alpha Bay, yeah.
Alpha Bay. And the takedown of that. I mean, and you went through all the details and all the little things, and how the German cops and the Dutch, I think it was the Dutch and the Germans, got together and cooperated on it, with maybe the FBI involved as well, to take down the guy. And oh man, yeah, was awesome.
Not just Alpha Bay, but they also took down Hansa. So 2 different dark markets that are only on Tor. These are selling drug marketplaces, and the FBI, it's war on drugs. I mean, the UN has a war on drugs. So the whole world's government agencies are like trying to crack down on this, and so they collaborated. Like 6 different governments collaborated to take down these places, and were able to together take down 2 different dark markets at once. And yeah, the story is just so illuminating. And you think, oh, okay, I heard about Silk Road, that's cool, but this was kind of like, what happened after Silk Road, you didn't even hear that much. And I think this one is just as exciting of a story.
That's what I was wondering. And I mean, you heard, the takedown was even since Trump's been in office. And of course you wouldn't hear about it with him in office. It's just some good news that wouldn't be shared amongst the mainstream networks for sure. But what made me think about what's going on here with that story, and I might be wrong on this, but the way you described the guy that they took down from Alpha Bay, I mean, he didn't seem like your average criminal. Like, he didn't even seem like he was the type that, maybe, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say he's not a criminal, but and that other hacker guy in the high school, like, some of these guys don't seem like they got caught, they got busted for these crimes, but I feel like it's, these guys getting involved that aren't really inherently bad guys, they're just getting involved in all this stuff and they kind of get sucked in. Is that something you're seeing as a trend in a way?
I think one of the kind of the hidden points of the show I try to tap into all the time is to bust stereotypes of who a hacker is.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, there's this kid in high school that got caught hacking. Well, he did his entire hack from a tablet in his 3rd period class in school, right? Yeah. It's not with a hoodie. It's not in a basement. It's not at a supercomputer. It's on the school's Wi-Fi in a tablet during class. And so, like, if you think about a hacker, that's how I want you to think now, is like the kids in the class, or the person behind you in the the airport, or at a coffee shop. Like, these are all locations of where a hack could take place anywhere and by anyone, like people who don't look like it. And all these people just don't look like it. You would never expect it. And I don't know, that one was really weird because his wife seemed like such a nice person. And I'm reading into the story, I don't know, I never saw any interviews with her or anything, but I don't even know if she believed or, knew what she believed. Yeah. That this guy was actually one of the kingpins of the big stock market out there.
Exactly.
She just looked like a nice woman.
But I feel like he stumbled across a real good opportunity, and he's like, oh, I can't let this slide. And then all of a sudden, Alpha Bay is like 10 times bigger than the Silk Road, and he's got all this money, and he's living across the world. And, it's just, they're great stories. And I mean, that kid, the kid gets sucked into, he's hacked his way in, and then you really did a good job at showing, like, or actually he was being interviewed. He was talking about it, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have these guys on themselves. And I mean, he's expressing like his reluctance to go further, but he's just getting sucked in. Can't help it, right? You're in the fucking principal's computer, and you're in his Twitter account. And do you stop?
Yeah, he's like, fuck the school, fuck the principal. I mean, like on the Twitter account, it's ridiculous.
I mean, I just wish he would have got a little more creative instead of just saying fuck this, fuck that. He could have kind of, I don't know.
Well, just think of the power that wields in today's world. Like when we were down at the Peterson event the other night, maybe remember Ruben made the comment because he had the computer. He had Peterson's computer. And he had to pull the questions up from it. He's like, oh, he's logged into Twitter. And it's just like, like taking control of someone who's a
public
figure's Twitter account for a couple minutes can put fucking things into a tailspin fast, man. Like just go throw some hate speech on there, and holy fuck, just watch it all come crumbling down.
Yeah, we're really in a fragile world sometimes.
Are there any examples of social media hacking like that backfiring? Because you don't see a lot of it. The only time I see is like my account got hacked. It's usually from somebody not famous.
I don't remember the exact details, but there was one politician that had like a blog post from years and years ago, and it was a little racist. And some people were pulling this up saying, oh, how terrible is this, to have such like racist blog posts and stuff. And she was like, oh, I did not write that. I got hacked. Somebody hacked my blog and they put that on there. And that was the story. And that's what everyone bought. Like, okay, you didn't do it. Fair enough. And then like a few months later, somebody actually pulled up like proof that she did write it that many years ago because she like commented on it somewhere else. And she did not get hacked. She did write it, but she was just using the hack as like an excuse to like, whoops, I am screwed up, but I'll try to erase it by just saying I didn't do it. But hack.
Well, what's your feeling about that? People going back now that we do have a profile that's decades long sometimes now on the internet, and people are going back and finding all this shit on people. I mean, where does this lead us as a society? Like, I feel like nothing will be secret or sacred eventually. Everything will just be all open books.
Yeah, it's weird, growing up without like somebody videotaping you beating up that kid. You just say, yeah, I didn't actually beat him up or something. Now it's like everyone films you beating up a kid. Shit, I didn't realize. Oh man, that's the nightly news now. And it's so easy. Yeah, it's weird having our lives documented in a whole new way, and I'm still getting used to it. I think something I'm going to start doing is just deleting like all my old social media posts, like anything over 30 days old, just delete it. Because why do I need like Twitter tweets from like 6 years ago out there? I don't. So I don't want.
Is there any sort of thing
especially as hate speech gets redefined?
Oh yeah, that's it. Oh yeah, you said midget. Fucking that's it. String them up upside. I think midgets were.
Are you calling me a name again?
No, but that's a big one here right now because they're renaming all the midget hockey leagues.
We have a hockey league, a league division. It's a division called midget. So that's offensive.
From coast to coast.
So, sorry to interrupt you there. Do you think there's a real threat, like after looking into all this and being in security, and do you realize, like, is this really, I mean, this is sort of the new war zone. I mean, is the threats must be fairly real from foreign actors everywhere. I mean, how bad is it?
It's just as bad as you can imagine. I think the U.S. government has never claimed to do like an attack, cyber attack. They never admitted to any of them. And there's proof that they have. So this is kind of weird that we don't even talk, like the government doesn't even talk about what its capabilities are. It can talk about, oh yeah, we have these bunker busters and these nuclear weapons, but we're not going to tell you what cyber weapons we have. Yeah. And one of the tricky situations was
because then you can't hack elections and blame it on Russia.
Yeah. There was like a chemical chemical weapons treaty that took like 20 years to get written. It took forever. Like nobody could agree on what a chemical weapon is or when you should use chemical weapons and all these things. It was a really sticky situation. But eventually, leaders started talking about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And I think it's going to take. I mean, we're in this first generation of kind of computers still, and it takes like the first generation abuses the crap out of it. Like when
how fucked up is it? Sorry to interrupt, but how fucked up is it that the first generation gets deep fake and stuff like that? Like, where does that end up? And
that's scary. That's really scary. I don't think we're ready for that at all. Like it's gonna get worse and worse and worse. Like we're not able to call out like unequivocally this is a fact or not. And now we've got this introducing it to just make more problems for us.
I just thought about that because I never thought about that. We are still in the first generation of computers and stuff, and now we can make fake videos with people. We can make Nicolas Cage in every movie.
I was thinking like when you introduce like alcohol to a society, the first generation abuses the crap out of it and it gets banned, and it's like, no, you guys don't get this anymore. And then we have to like learn and pass it on from down generation to say, okay, look, this is how to properly use alcohol. We're going to bring it back. We're going to remember, not to get so crazy with it. And I think that, some stuff it's going to get crazy with the internet where I'm guessing that more stuff's going to get shut down, because they're going to say, oh, because child porn is on the internet, we're not going to allow you to get outside the US on the internet or something like that. And there's going to be more and more regulations on there before we all kind of just say, hey, we can't allow you guys to have these walls over between nations on the internet. The internet needs to be worldwide, and it's gonna grow and shrink a few times before we finally learn how to use it responsibly. I think it's gonna take a while.
Yeah, but I feel like if it goes to a certain point, it won't be able to snap back or bounce back to some reasonable point because there's so much disinformation and so much. And like Darren was mentioning, these things can be fake now. And when do we get to the point where just you can't believe anything anymore? I mean,
I think we're there.
And we're basically, I get the feeling that we talk about this, simulation, digital universe kind of thing. But in some ways, our perceptions are created by these things that I don't think can go backwards anymore. Like I think once we go to a point where
reading too much Unabomber manifesto.
Don't you think though? Don't you think it's going to get to a point where it can't come back? Like it will just be in a dystopian world of you believe or you have to believe everything that you see online, or you can't believe anything that you see online. Like,
you know what? In some days that might be better because think about this way, like, and I could be wrong. What if I think maybe a couple hundred years ago and news still traveled by telegram and, it might have been rougher living, but for some reason I still think it might have been maybe like a slightly happier time because you're less stressed out. You've got more meaning and purpose maybe than you're pulling out today. And so then you get into this slowly thing where this, and I think, I don't know, Jack might disagree, but it's come pretty apparent that all of our news agencies and shit are just propaganda networks. I mean, there's no reason to think that hasn't been the same for a long, long time. So maybe it getting to the point that nothing is real anymore is almost closer to a utopian because maybe it gets to the point where people are like, I mean, a bunch of people are canceling their cable at an unprecedented rate, and maybe that has something to do with it. And if it does, then maybe it is some sort of weird good byproduct of the oversaturation of fakeness. If that makes sense.
There's a lot of opinions out there. Like, when you have like people and leaders of the country taking bribes to get certain bills passed as well, it just adds to the lies and all the stuff out there. And so I don't know, like having a lot of research out there that is politically motivated or being paid to do the research to find specific stuff. Here's some money. Can you please find this particular thing? And yeah, you'll be able to find that particular thing with, enough research, but it may not be true, but you could find, evidence of it slightly, maybe 1% of it is out there that's that way. And so that becomes like the entire research project. And I think that's needs to be addressed somehow. Politicians don't need to be taking so many bribes, and some of this research needs to be fact checked by independent bodies or something. I'm not exactly sure, but there's definitely a war on facts right now.
Yeah,
war on consciousness too. It's funny how many times the problem comes down to fucking money, because both those things you just said, those are both money, and the solution is usually love.
Yeah,
interesting. Because that's just it, right? There's too much money in science. There's science is bought and paid for by whoever has the most money, and the same with the politics. And it's just out in the open now. It's called lobbying. We just came up with a name for bribing politicians. I wonder what the actual definition of a lobbyist is. Have you ever hacked anything?
Yeah, my first hack was SimCity, the first video game, or the first version of it. And I hacked into the save game file to give myself like $1 billion sim dollars or whatever, and then I could play however I wanted.
Oh, that's awesome! That was
awesome.
That was the game that I left video games from. The last one I played, I think.
Was it Sims?
Yeah, SimCity. No, SimCity.
So did you just come up with that? Can you give us because I've got no fucking skill at hacking. I'm pretty handy with the computer. I can figure things out, and sometimes it looks like it was hacked and slashed together, but that's about as close as I get to hacking. So how does that even thought process even come about? Did you find out about it someplace, or did you just come up with it on your own?
I think, no, I came up with it on my own, but I think hacking in my mind is just kind of a loose interpretation of when something doesn't work, you figure out a way to make it do what it's not supposed to do. And so you've probably turned, I don't know, something into something else.
I turned a corn on the cob holder into a dabber the other day.
Yeah, you could even turn it into a knife. So you hacked it.
Yeah.
Shiv or something. But that's the whole point of it, right? It's like you think, okay, this is what I have to work with. These are the tools I have to work with. How can I get the thing I need to make? Or, what can I do to these tools to get something I actually need or something? And so, back then I was in high school or something, and I was just opening up the save game file and trying to read what was in there, and just changing some of the data, change a 1 to a 0 and a 9 to a 3, and then open it up in the game and see what was different. And sure enough, I was changing the name of the town and other stuff, and it was really throwing darts in the dark. And eventually, I hit the right number that was the value of the money. And hey, look at that.
What's number 2?
What, the second hack?
Yeah.
Oh man,
because that's funny, because when you tell that story, it kind of reminds me of you always hear the Jobs and Wozniak story where the first thing was that stupid tone thing that they'd play on the payphone and they could get. I remember when I was a kid, what's funny is when I was a kid, this would have been the 80s. And this is probably when Jobs had just made this thing. And there was this urban legend in fucking Red Lake, Ontario, that you could get free long distance somehow. And I remember we would sit but we thought it was a tapping thing. So you'd sit at the payphone and we thought if you tapped the button a number of times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And try and do that to them, and it didn't work. But I wonder if that was a ripple from the actual
yeah,
story.
You're on the right path. Definitely. That's how a lot of these hacks work. Is you just kind of brute force all these different things that maybe the person who made that phone never thought somebody would do, and that ends up creating some sort of bug or something in the code and ends up making a call. That's very possible, After that, what my dad kind of taught me was social engineering. And this is where you kind of hack the human mind. And so I don't know why, but he was always trying to sneak me into Disneyland, sneak me into the baseball game, sneak me into some movie theater or something. And it's he taught me this. And so before I knew it, I was sneaking into everything that I could sneak into, specifically Disneyland and water parks and theme parks and football games, anything that costs, I was sneaking into them all. I don't know if that's considered a hack, but that's,
sure. My sister does that really
I snuck
well.
into the Stampede
My
once
sister
and got
always
busted.
just gets into things. Oh, yeah?
We got promptly arrested.
Really?
They just took us outside of the grounds, and it was so elaborate too. We climbed over the Roundup building. They're doing construction on one time of it, so there's some scaffold there. We climbed up onto the roof, jumped over. We jumped down onto the lower roof, and there was some cops on the one side, so went to the other side, jumped into a tree, and climbed down the tree.
And you got caught.
When we got to the bottom of the tree, the cops were just there waiting for us. It's too bad.
So what about Mr. Robot? And have you watched that? And for somebody that's not very computer literate like me, it sure seems fairly interesting and accurate. Like if I was watching it as as a hacker.
Heck yeah, man. That's one of my favorite shows. That the people who make that are there's consultants and even producers are very much, I mean, even Sam Esmail was very much into security before making the show. And Sam, the director, was very adamant about every hack we do, it needs to be as realistic as possible. And so he hires consultants to say, here's what the plot is of the story. How do we make a hack connect these two plot points? How do we get him to get the keys to this or to get this thing? And so the consultants will come up with historical hacks that have probably been in the news that may have get them in there. So like they hack into the data center by using a Raspberry Pi on a I don't know, the thermometer, the thermostat.
Yeah.
And this was something similar to what happened at Target. I think Target hack was similar. There was a hack through the thermostat system. So they're always using this kind of realistic hacks to make the plot go on, and I love that about the show. It's really realistic in the way that the hacking takes place there.
Cool, that's good to know. I thought it was. I felt like it was watching it, but I don't know if it was really just sci-fi or not. But yeah,
I forgot about Mr. Robot actually.
Yeah, another one that's pretty accurate, I feel like, is Silicon Valley. There's like a security guy in there, and he seems to be talking. Like when he starts talking the language, I'm like, wow, that's legit right there. He's
really
talking about different DDoS attacks and stuff. I'm like, yeah, you would need to consider all that stuff.
I'm so out of touch. I actually just came out of my no TV slump and started because I heard Planet Earth or Blue Planet 2 was on Netflix. So I've been watching that. I've been waiting for Blue Planet 2 for like 10 years. So how about podcasting? Why podcasting? How long did you want to be? Yeah, well, we're podcasters, so we always get excited to talk about podcasting. So yeah, when did you decide you want to do a podcast? Did you listen to one that made you decide?
I've been listening to like This American Life for 10 years or so, and there's been so many times where I'm just in the car, at that driveway moment, like waiting for the story to finish so I get out and go do my shopping or whatever. And I just, I realized like how gripping some of those stories were, and I'm like, wait, there's so much drama in security. Why can't I just do This American Life for InfoSec, for hacking stories? And I reached out to a bunch of podcasters telling them about this idea, but none of them really wanted to take me up on it. So I just didn't think it would ever come around, but I got sick of waiting for it. And I said, I want to scratch my own itch. I'm making it for myself. And holy hell, it's been like the hardest thing I've ever worked on. I love working on the different projects, making websites and blogs and stuff, but every 2 weeks, I've got to come up with basically a documentary on a hack or a person or something. And wow, it's just like I'm moving at the speed of light here.
Oh yeah, that's got to be a bit overwhelming. Are you doing it all around a full-time job too?
I quit my job a few months back, and this is finally paying the bills. So
good for you.
Yeah, congratulations. That's what we're hoping to get one day.
Month it's got there.
Congratulations. Yeah, that's a big achievement. Congratulations. That's got to make it a whole lot easier. I mean, for us, it's a lot of work, but it's a lot easier because we don't, we count on guys like you to fill the content. We just sort of poke you along and talk shit.
No, you guys got the chemistry and you got the hard hitting questions and all that. So you're good at what you do.
What do you think about podcasting as an effect on the culture, current and future? Where do you think it's headed?
It's interesting to look at who's listening to podcasts. I think it's kind of a younger crowd. I can't get my dad to listen to any of them. And a lot of older people just have a tough time putting headphones on and sitting down and listening to it. They don't know what to do with their time when they listen to it and stuff. So it's definitely impacting a younger generation or a middle generation, not even the kids. They're not into it yet either. So teenagers aren't really into podcasts, listening to it so much. They're listening to music, I think. So there's this there's this middle ground, kind of the millennials is really soaking it up, and they're getting a lot out of it. I think, number one, they're listening to a lot of documentaries and stories about historical, just history, and learning and educating off that. And hopefully these people are telling them truth, and not leading them down crazy lies. But then I think we after school, we kind of lose track and to like our friends and stuff, and we don't get that chatter, that just banter of kind of what we're doing here, of just listening to people talk and to be kind of part of a conversation. And it's soothing to just tune in and listen to people talk. And I don't know, that there's some self-help involved with just letting the chatter go on. And
that's a great point. Because I remember chatting like in high school with friends. Like we used to chat all the time. Like we'd chat all the time, and then you leave school.
That's all we did is go for coffee
and you
every
work,
night.
and then when at work you don't really have the same kind of thing going on. So, and then now, this is back to that.
I remember just countless hours just sitting on the fucking curb in front of the post office talking shit.
Yeah,
that's what we do now on the podcast with people that are way smarter than us. Yeah, that's an interesting. I think I would agree with that. I would say our main demo is probably like the 25 to 35 range would be probably our sort of sweet spot. We got a couple guys though that are like Nicky the Dude's been around since like day one, episode 1, and he's over 50 for sure.
Yeah, it's not always exactly.
My mom listens. Yeah, she said.
Yeah, my mom tried again.
All right, yeah.
She still gets upset at your swearing, but she's tried it.
Sorry, Mary.
So is it, I wonder if you're like us where we have so many content ideas and so many guests now. And at first we thought, will we have enough? Will we, be running out, that kind of thing? Do you end up with a backlog of stories and episodes that you want to do?
This first year has been really rough. I've run out of show ideas multiple times and had to whip something up in like 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's like a show fell through or something happened. I just couldn't get that one out. So I was having trouble with stories, but in the last couple of months, I've got in the groove, and I've got a log of stories. So if I was to interview someone today, it would probably be like 2 months from now that it would actually go out.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. Good.
I'm working on like 3 at a time now.
Yeah,
and that's more comfortable. At first it was really hard to get in that groove.
Yeah.
But stories themselves are there's a million good hacker stories out there. They're just all over the place. But I want to get to the center of it. I want to talk to the person who was there specifically and get their exact take on it, because I think that's where the best part of the story is the person who was doing it or getting hacked or something. That's the meat of it. If I can get that, then that's great. And that's where I have a tough time actually finding people who are there.
Yeah, that's the tough part. Yeah, that's the investigative journalism part where you got to find like that actual guy.
Yeah, I could see that style is how. Yeah, that's so you've got kind of. Yeah, it's like harder.
And I was just tweeting about this yesterday that it's easier for me to find a hacker who wants to talk about the hack they did than to find a person who's been hacked.
That's
talk
hilarious.
About how they got hacked. And I think it's the corporate culture saying, "Oh, please don't talk to the press about this Equifax breach or Target breach or whatever." Because Equifax is not talking to the press about this. There's no way I could ever get them to tell me, what was it like when you first got hacked? What was your manager saying? What was that? Because those are the things that would be so great stories.
A lot of NDAs, right? Probably.
Yeah, an NDA. Like none of those people will ever be able to talk about it. But the hacker, I'll tell you some thing or two.
I'll tell you what. We'll do a little thing. Try and hack Graham. Try and steal his identity a little bit.
No. I was just gonna ask about identity theft, if that was.
And then just let me know. We'll have like a code. You can email me as Graham with a little code in there, so I know it's you. And then we'll start really having some fun. It'll be fun. I could see how that style of show could be. You can kind of, because we find there's like a sweet spot where we can't be too many shows ahead either. We start to feel like people have been waiting 2 months for their episodes to come out. And I guess you have both those problems too, because you're interviewing people. Like, I don't know, are the people you interviewing, are they eager to hear the stories come out? I wonder if it's different when you're doing a journalism sort of thing.
Yeah, the younger the person, the more eager they are to hear it. Like that one high schooler, he's just like, when is it coming? When is it coming? I'm like, dude, settle down. So I'm talking to this one 18-year-old now, And oh my gosh, it's such a big story that I think it's going to have to be its own podcast. Like it's a 6-parter at least. Like how big, how many parts do I do before I realize it's its own show? And I've been working on this one for like 4 months now, and it's interview them over and over and over because I just have to get so much out of them.
Wow.
And
Can you give us a sneak peek on the gist of that one?
oh man, I don't even want to even get involved in that. But this guy's life ever since 8 years old has just been insane. Like every year of his life has just been another massive traumatic experience. And it's not even into hacking too much. It's just his life is just crazy. So I'm like, wow, I have to document this somehow. So he's asking me all the time, like, when is it coming out? I'm like, dude, it's the hardest thing I've ever worked on in my life. You got to give me like another 3 months.
Wow.
Like the first draft out.
That'll be rewarding when it does come out.
Have you ever done an identity theft one, or is that something that you would get into?
There's the IRS episode that I talk about how people use the IRS website to download someone else's tax returns and then file the next year's tax returns on their behalf to get the whatever tax return is coming back to them. But
Wow.
this fraudster. That's the closest I've done to about identity theft. But yeah,
That's
I
good.
think there's so many different arears I can cover, and I think that's definitely one I should get into.
I don't know. That's a scary one. You probably should just leave that and not even open up that can.
What about life hacks? Are you like, does the hacker sort of mindset transition into everything, or do you have like any little life hacks you could share with us?
Yeah, there's one guy I'm talking to who I think I can get him to give me an episode, but he's really good at hacking airlines to the point where he gets free travel all over the place. And he'll do, I don't know all the details, but he'll do something like book this massive round trip ticket, get enough free miles to get a free ticket somewhere, cancel his round trip ticket, get the money back, and now he's got the free miles to go somewhere for free.
Wow.
So he'll do a ton of hacks like that and just travel all over the world for free.
Is his name Chris by any chance?
I don't know his real name.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I think it does. I think it does. Go into everything, and that's where I think my social engineering is where I kind of probably got started with all this, because I was realizing like there's no line over there. There's nobody to stop me if I go through that door backwards. And so what other things can I use the wrong way that can have a beneficial effect of some kind? Like maybe when you get that ant farm, you get the ability to order ants in the mail because the ant farm doesn't come with the ants. You got to mail them in. But when I got my first ant farm, I realized, holy cow, I can send ants to anyone I want to. And they're going to open it up, and now they've got a box of ants coming up. And so that's the way a hacker, I think, thinks is, how do you take something and use it differently to get a completely different effect out of it? I don't know. Yeah, it definitely transcends into all other parts of the world.
So
like putting coffee in your butthole.
How do you define like the social engineering part for like, how is it that you define those acts of sort of hacking and skipping lines or finding your way in somewhere as social engineering?
I mean, if there's security, if there's some sort of policy that says nobody should be allowed in this place without paying their ticket or being authorized to be here, then that's a challenge to me. I'm like, well, I'm going to find like 6 ways to get around that, because that's just the way I first will think about it. And everywhere I go, I just think about, I mean, you go into the bank and you're like, well, the door to get behind the bank is not even like a full door. It's like a half-size door. I could just jump over that thing, and now I'm in behind the tellers. Like, why is this considered secure? And so I just think about all this all the time. So, I mean, that's what social engineering is. It's hacking the human to get into a place or get some information that you wouldn't normally get. Sometimes it's just calling someone on the phone and getting them to disclose information that they probably shouldn't be giving, like a list of clients or phone numbers to people who they shouldn't be giving phone numbers to, because you're like, hey, look, I've got this deadline. I need this thing. I work in marketing, but I don't have the number to the CEO, and I need to call him tonight. Do you have his number or something? Okay, I'll help you. You're on this deadline.
Even hacking your own brain. I think I mean,
So
if you're active, you're constantly doing that, whether you're reading or learning or talking to people, you know, I guess you're that in a sense is hacking.
So something that's popular now is security conferences. One of the most popular ones is DEF CON, and it's a hacker conference where, I mean, you got people, just like you can imagine a hacker conference, but a lot of people are wearing mohawks and all black clothing. Everyone's wearing black hoodies. It's it's very hackerish, right? And in there, you see things like biohacking and medical device hacking and every kind of hacking you can imagine, hacking the brain, hacking your sleep patterns, hacking your bank account, like hacking as much as you can. And it's really scary. So it definitely it carries over in everything you can think about hacking.
I was listening to I think it was an entrepreneur on fire. What's his name? Dumas. Saying the doctor he had on was talking about how just changing if you change from like the fat intake, because I guess your brain is like 30% fat. So if you just take your fat intake from like whatever, corn oil and all that sort of stuff and start switching it over to your healthy fats, it's like in 3 months it completely switches over and it's like losing an entire layer of fog. But he wrote a whole book on just how you can micro tune your brain into. This guy was like semi autistic. Actually, I don't know if he was semi autistic. I shouldn't say that. He was in special education because he just couldn't keep up. He couldn't do anything. He finally gets with this one doctor and they start changing up his diet, and he ends up on the dean's list for the entire country like 6 years later or 8 years later or something like that. And now he's one of the best doctors in the country.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. That's hacking your brain.
Yeah.
Remember when you used to hack stuff before you just started letting everything slide? So have you hacked your podcast to the top charts yet?
I've listened to a lot of John Lee Dumas myself and done a lot of marketing to get my podcast up there, but I didn't pay those marketers to fake my way up. No,
That's good.
That's interesting. I bet you we've listened to a lot of the same podcasts because I handle sort of that end of things here. So
yeah, Pat Flynn, Tim Ferriss, Gary Vaynerchuk.
I used to like Ray Ortega back in the day before he gave it up. That was the first one I listened to was Ray Ortega.
I haven't checked his out yet.
Yeah, he had the Podcasters Studio.
Oh yeah.
And then there was the Audacity to Podcast with Daniel J. Lewis. And he actually still offers that service for checking all your. He'll pull all your reviews from across all the iTunes countries and email them to you.
Yeah, he's great. He taught me a lot.
It all seems to be US anyway, though. So I suppose before we start wrapping up here, do you have any like tips for our audience on what they should and shouldn't be doing?
I just want to say that your phone number isn't as secure as you think. Give you a scenario here. If you boast on Twitter, oh man, I'm doing great in Bitcoin, and then that's your real name in Twitter somehow, and people were able to like reverse engineer your name to get your phone number because maybe your phone number's on Facebook or something. There's a thing called SIM swapping, which will allow someone to call the phone company basically and say, hey, I got a new phone. Can you please port my number to this SIM card? And now with that, your phone number being on someone else's phone, think about how all the things they have access to. They can log into your Google by saying, yeah, text me the code, or like they have so many extra layers of access because they have your phone number and they actually have access to your phone.
So because they've actually got the SIM switched over, so they actually have access to your iCloud. Yes. Then maybe even
you can start getting your texts and shit.
Yeah. So
don't put your phone number online.
Yeah, but a lot of these websites are asking for it now.
I was just about to put this. I was going to put this phone number online today. I did this. I was going to make this cell phone the Grimerica call-in line. Should I not do that?
I would get a Google Voice number and use that number instead.
The Google Voice doesn't work so well. You can't even call it with Skype now. Skype. Yeah. It just, it's just like. But in retrospect, I don't use this phone number for anything in my regular life.
Oh, okay.
Or any of my like online security stuff. That's all the other phone number.
you remember like 10, 15 years ago, our social security number was like private and personal, and you just don't share it because somebody could use that to steal your identity. Well, now it's kind of like you should treat your phone number like that. Do not give it out freely. And I don't know. It's something I'm still kind of coping with. And it's just kind of one of those eye openers. Like, it's important to protect your phone number.
So what about all these sites that are requiring it now? Like if you buy something online, they a lot of them are asking for your phone number now.
Yeah, exactly. And so if somebody gets access to your number, then they can get into all those accounts. That's the scary part about it all.
Jeez.
So what do you think about the singularity and this
I can even log into your
technocracy that we're living in?
Apple ID.
Yeah, I know.
I've got you.
Yeah.
I got your credit card number. Oh man, I could just ruin your life. Jack, we got to talk offline.
So what about like the future of the technocracy and how close we're getting to, combining technology with consciousness and all that? And how does hacking in that environment seems pretty scary too. I mean, what are your thoughts on the future of computer tech and consciousness and all that?
Oh man,
I know it's a big question, but
yeah, I mean, I find it fascinating to see like the kind of the progress of like compass and just directions, right? So at first I was like, oh, I know my way there. I don't need a compass. And then, there was like advanced sailors that are like, no, I'm relying on my compass to get me there. And then it was like, okay, let's have a GPS in our car. And other people are like, no, I'm going to memorize my way to get there. I'm not going to rely on a GPS. I want to know how to get there. But then we become so reliant on this GPS that we forget everything, how to get everywhere. And I think that's kind of a peek into that future of like, man, I don't know your number. I don't know your phone number. I don't know where you live. Everything that I need to know about that is stored on this device. It knows where you live. It knows your phone number. I'm just going to rely on that every time. And I don't know, is it that we're offloading this kind of information to allow us to absorb more? Or do we lose something tangible about taking that away from our memory? And yeah, I don't know. I think that's a kind of a peak. And another peak I think into it would be I think when I'm going to become an old man will be when the input of all these devices is no longer a keyboard or mouse or even a touch screen. And it's going to be like a twitter of your ear, move your ear or tap your teeth or just think the thought. And that's how you text someone. And I'm going to be like, no, I need a keyboard. I will not budge off this. I need to be able to input like keys commands. I'm not going to just like twist my wrist in a way to interact with things. So
when I'm not just going to think about that.
You're going to get a port put in.
Yeah, I'm not going to think about that. I want to type it out first.
Can you imagine they just hook it up? Oh man, they hooked that thing up to I didn't even know. I can't even tell you what it's going to say.
Well, we're there already because of the Echo Dot or the Home. I don't have any of these things. I don't even know what they're called, but like all the voice command.
Alexa and all those, yeah.
I smashed our Google one because weird shit started happening whenever it was on.
Yeah, it's freaky. So it doesn't have a keyboard. I'm not tolerating this. I can't. I mean, it's freaky for other reasons, but that's my old man in me of like, I can't just tell a computer what to do. I just don't trust it. I don't. It's going to like mess up everything I say, and it's just not accurate. And that's what kind of freaks me out about the future a little is this lack of being able to input things correctly. It's guessing.
Do you think Professor Ted maybe had it right then?
Who? What's he say?
He wrote the Unabomber Manifesto.
Oh man, what are you reading that for?
We read it as part of our backdoor content here for our supporters because it's just like he wrote the thing in the 90s and he's just like his take on it is that it doesn't matter what government's in charge or anything like that. That is the inevitable end of this technology is the autonomy of humans becoming less and less and less and less. And he talks about over socialization and, and this is way before Facebook and MySpace and stuff like that. It's unbelievable.
He kind of predicted our technological climate right now.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's kind of creepy. Let's think together.
I would have had the same answer as you a couple of years ago. And then, I heard it come up on a couple of shows enough times. So I just read it, you can read it in a couple of hours. And it's just like, holy fuck. I mean, some of it is a little over the top, obviously, but some of it is just like pretty on point for, almost 30 years ago.
Yeah, it's scary.
it is kind of scary because if it keeps going the way he says it's going, then we end up in the Matrix or some shit. What's your take on AI before we wrap up?
On what?
AI.
I'm excited about self-driving cars.
Really?
Yeah. I think that's going to be a lot of fun to just sit there and like not where they're at now, where it's like you have to hold on to the wheel, but like where it's more safe than drivers on the road, and it's really good. So like 6 generations from now, but I'm excited about that. I'm excited about just freeing up more time. I'm a time hacker. I want to find a way to have more time in my life, and I'll shortcut things in order to have more time. And that thing I'm excited about just for that.
That's why you like podcasts, because you can do a million things while you're listening to something.
Yeah.
Oh, you got rid of your number 1 fucking time hog. So congratulations on that. Working for a living seems to demand the most of my time.
Yeah.
But yeah, we should let you go, Jack. We really appreciate the time, if that's your real name.
What do you got? Let's hear about what you got coming up though first before we let you go.
Yeah.
Like what's your next couple?
Is there one more this
out?
year? What was the date on the last one?
I had one that came out 3 days ago, I think, and it was all about the NSA of Israel.
Oh, I love that app.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The training of the Israelis in there.
Was there any blowback on that? It seems like anytime you bring up Israel, you get shit.
Yeah, I had some people that were saying I wasn't representing it. I was a puppet for their propaganda.
No. Oh, yeah.
Which is really hard to research something really deep and not. I got swept up in it. I agree. I did puppet some of it, but the next episode, this was setting up. Okay, so the setup for the next episode is all about Stuxnet, which is where the NSA and Israel hacked into Iran. And then after that is the episode where Iran hacks back.
Oh, wow.
When are you going to do the, everybody wants to know when you're going to do the 2016 election hacking.
That one is tough. That one is hacking the minds. It's less of the machines and more of the minds. The culture has been hacked.
I think that's comment enough. It looks like the Russians were able to run everything with $100,000. So we're going to save up $100,000 and we're going to rule the fucking world.
Well, they're going to ruin it. I don't know if they're going to rule it.
Well, that's why we got to band up with our podcast, and we'll get the $100,000 together and we'll just bypass everything. That's it. No more taxes. Anyway, Jack, welcome to the show. Come back anytime. And yeah, it's always fun to talk to another podcaster that knows the trials and tribulations of trying to get a show out weekly or bi-weekly in your case.
Yeah, this was really fun. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Yeah, thanks, man. Keep up the good work. It's awesome.
Merry Christmas. Are you still allowed to say that in America?
Yeah.
Merry Christmas. Okay, Jack. Bye for now.
All right, bye.
Oh, how do I do this now? I always fuck this up. Oh, and that was our chat with Jack Rhysider. What do you think? I can't wait till the next episode now.
Yeah, it's good. Good work. Yeah, it puts a lot of work into it.
I could see that.
Deep. Yeah, it's fascinating because it's internet and hacking. Like, I think he's really hit a niche here, and he's got a head start on anyone who wants to do this kind of work. I think.
Oh yeah, it's great, and they're like the right length too. Oh. You know, they're like the perfect length where they don't go too long.
Oh, I wanted to ask him more about the dark web and the Silk Road type stuff and all that. Like, because after that episode,
why are you always so interested in the dark web, Graham?
I'm not.
What do you want to buy?
We never talk about it.
What do you want to buy that you can't buy on the regular internet?
Nothing.
No, nothing.
Amazon satisfies my needs.
True.
No, but after that episode that he talked about the takedown of Alpha Bay, I feel like it did scatter everything all over the place. You know, there's no longer this one place to go for all that stuff. So I do think it's changed quite a bit. I mean, we should have got into that a little bit. Anyways.
Yeah, that would have been the guy to do it with for sure. Well, maybe we could do another show down the road just all about the dark web. Because I don't know fuck all about the dark web. But anyway, Dark Web Diaries, Dark Web Diaries? Darknet Diaries. Definitely worth checking out. It's snuck its way up my list. A little higher every episode so far. So check it out. While you're on the internet checking stuff out, check out grimerica.ca/support. Sign up for a monthly there on the PayPal. Don't like PayPal, that's fine. We get it. Head over to grimerica.ca/Stripe. Sign up for a Stripe monthly if you can. Both of those have one-time donation options as well. And all of that helps us pay the bills and helps us hopefully keep the heat on in the new space when we move in a couple weeks. By the time this episode comes out, we'll be in the new we'll be in the new space when this comes out. So now we've got rent coming up. Support the show. Really does help. It just, you'd be surprised how much better you feel after you hit that subscribe button.
Yeah.
Prove me wrong.
Because it really helps us. Yeah. It really does.
Prove me wrong. Yeah. All right, guys.
Couldn't do it without you.
We couldn't do it without you, especially you. All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. Actually, we'll see you in like 17 minutes. This is our longest break of the evening.
Yeah.
God, I'm hungry.
2 more?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 more.
We got the Fandango, which will probably go 2.5 hours, 3 hours.
Is there any way we
maybe
can bring
even.
those guys up? No?
Well, it's all like, it starts in 15 minutes.
No. Bring the other guys up. If the Fandango ends at 9.
Oh.
I know it won't.
I don't know. It seems like a lot. It seems like there's a lot of moving parts we got together in a short
So
time.
is that other people joining us then? Like, do we need to I read those bios of the people.
I didn't read the bios because I'm not the bio guy. I go in with the. Are we still live anywhere?
Yeah.
I go in with,
On what?
YouTube and the radio?
I go in with the Larry King approach. I don't read anything.
No, I know. We all know you do.
I just like to be the guy on the street.
But you're organizing it, so we should. How am I supposed to do the research if I don't even know who's participating?
Hey, somebody said that we have a PhD in introology. Where?
All right. Say goodbye.
It looks like.
Okay, we should say goodbye. Yeah.
Looks like Stephen Gray actually sent out his newsletter from his other email account.
Anyways, thanks to everybody for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in live. We'll be back in 15 minutes with the call-in show, the call-in Fandango.